Hello, welcome back. It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon in Baton Rouge. Just another Saturday in the Swaggart household. But that peace shattered when Frances Swaggart called an unexpected family meeting, something so rare that it immediately raised concern. Her message was brief, no emotion, no explanation, just a simple plea to come home because it was important. Donnie, her son, interrupted his travel plans and arrived first. Sensing from her tone that this was more than just a family visit, Gabriel, his son, followed along with a few longtime friends and ministry members. The house, normally alive with warmth and prayer, now felt cold, almost like it was holding its breath. Frances was always the strong one, composed even in the stormiest of moments. But today, something was different. She clutched her Bible like it was the only thing keeping her grounded, her fingers trembling and her face pale. Her silence unnerved everyone, and when she finally stood to speak, her voice cracked under the weight of what she had held in for so long. She mentioned a truth she had been guarding, one her husband Jimmy Swaggart had entrusted to her, a truth she was now ready to let go of. It had to do with Donnie and with Jimmy. That's all she said before asking for a few more moments to gather herself. As the hours dragged, the room stayed unnaturally still. Frances sat in her armchair, her Bible still untouched in her lap, eyes staring off like she was watching memories only she could see. Donnie, deeply unsettled, knelt by her side, urging her to speak. Her voice was barely above a whisper as she began to admit the burden she'd carried. She didn't say it outright yet, but it was clear something painful and deep was coming. Gabriel offered her water, but she wasn't thirsty, she was simply overwhelmed. What Jimmy had left her to protect was finally ready to be revealed. She rose and walked to a small wooden box that had always been there but never touched. Now, everyone was staring at it, waiting. Frances said Jimmy had given it to her days before his death. Inside it was a letter for Donnie. She had never read it. She placed it in his hands and told him she believed the time had finally come. With shaking fingers, Donnie opened it and began reading. His face changed as the words sank in, first confusion, then disbelief. The letter wasn't just a goodbye, it was a confession. Jimmy admitted that Donnie wasn't his biological son, he was the child of a close friend, James Carter, a man who had passed away in a tragedy. Donnie had been taken in without legal papers, without a formal adoption. Frances and Jimmy simply raised him as their own. The room went still. Donnie's identity, his name, his legacy, everything had been shaken in a few paragraphs. He looked to his mother, desperate for denial, but Frances confirmed it. Yes, he had been born David Carter. Yes, James Carter had been a dear friend of Jimmy's, and yes, they kept it from him because they loved him and feared the judgment of others. She told him she had lost a child before and that when Donnie came into their lives, it felt like a gift from God. Donnie was quiet, broken. His whole life had been built on a foundation he thought was rock solid, but now felt like sand. He had modeled himself after Jimmy, carried the Swaggart name with pride, built a ministry on the belief that he was continuing a family legacy, and now he didn't even know who he was. But even in that pain, Gabriel stepped in to remind him that who he was hadn't changed. Blood didn't define their love or their bond. Donnie had still lived those years, earned that respect, and carried the calling. Frances, usually so composed, broke down completely. She spoke not as a pastor's wife, but as a mother consumed by guilt and fear. She confessed to the emotional toll of keeping the secret. She'd watched Donnie grow up with love and pride, all while carrying the burden of the truth. She cried openly, saying she feared every day that he would find out and hate her for it. But through her tears, she made it clear she loved him more than anyone else in the world. And that had never changed. Donnie took her hands in his, voice trembling, and told her she had nothing to prove. She had always been his mother. No truth could take that from him, but the emotional storm inside him was growing. He stood and walked away, silent, numb. Everyone watched him disappear into a back room without saying a word. Gabriel wanted to follow, but Frances stopped him. Donnie needed a moment. Inside the room, Donnie sat alone, the letter still in his hands. The name David Carter echoed in his mind like a stranger's whisper. He thought about all the moments he'd shared with Jimmy, moments that now seemed tainted by secrets. The tears came slowly, silently. It wasn't just about discovering the truth. It was about losing the story he had always believed was his. Gabriel entered the room quietly and sat next to him. They didn't speak at first, and when Donnie finally did, his words cut deep. I don't know who I am anymore. The pain was real. The truth had broken something inside him. But beneath that pain was also something else, love that hadn't disappeared, only changed. It would take time to heal. But now, at least, the healing could begin.